So, welcome. Hello, everybody. Today at the SEG Women Network Student Chapter Monthly Meeting, we are being visited by Elaine Mattos. Hi, Elaine. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here with all the students. I really enjoyed that, seeing all the energy that you guys bring to the table.
Great, thank you. So Elaine has over 20 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. She started her career working on board seismic vessels, worked in 5 different countries in several technical and managerial positions at Schlumberger. She has been with Fairfield Technologies since 2019 as SVP, Head of Science and Marketing. Elaine serves as the Vice Chair of the IAGC Americas Committee and the Vice Chair for the SEG Women Network. She's passionate about humanitarian causes and has been an active member of the SEG Geoscience Without Border Committee since 2019. And as I was saying before, she's visiting today the students chapter for us to ask her questions about her career, how she helps in the SEG Women's Network, and all the other activities that she hosts with SEG. So I'm opening now the floor, and feel free to start asking questions for Elaine. So I can start first, and then you can follow up. So I would like to know, Elaine, what motivated you to be part of the Women Network committee member? What is that moves you to come here and be helping and volunteering your time with the Women's Network?
Okay, so I've been part of the SEG pretty much since I started my professional career, since 2000. But I was never an active member on any committee. I didn't know how to. And it was later in my career that I just started looking for information and trying to see how I could join a committee. And the main reason why was I wanted to expand my network. Even though I was working for Schlumberger at the time, which was very big company, right? At the time was over 100,000 employees. I felt like my network was limited to the people in the same company, and I wanted to have a different broad view and getting to know people from other companies, from other areas as well, not only seismic business. And that's why I joined. I started looking into some committees and see which ones I could participate in. And then I applied for the Women's Network. The second part of it was that I felt like there was no, when I've been attending SCG meetings for almost 15 years now, and I see the ratio of male and female attending those meetings. It's been growing, but it's still sometimes there were occasions where I was the only one female in the booth, and I would look around and just see male. So that was another reason why I wanted to see how could we improve the participation of women in at SCG and professional societies in general.
That is super interesting, Elena. I want to just follow up with one short question. I do see the same difference in representation at SEG and also in the oil and gas, and you work for a oil and gas company and for the industry. What's your experience in that area? You see the same difference in representation, and how do you lead that?
It improved. When I joined 20 years ago, for just so you have an idea, we had, I believe, 3 women that used to go and work offshore. And it was difficult because they would never send just one woman in the boat by herself. So you always had to have someone else with you at Schlumberger. So I was limited to go to the same vessels, right? I couldn't go and work on other vessels. And then it would be just me and the other lady, Julie. She used to work with me as well. She was actually senior than me. or me and a Norwegian lady that I forgot, but there was never more than two on the vessel. And just so you have an idea of proportions, it was 60 men's and one or two women. That was at the beginning. When I left the vessel 4 years later, there was a small increase. I would see 3 to 4 women on the vessel, not more than that ever. And then in the office was still the same. But in the last 10 years, I saw some improvements, but that was, I think, was specifically to Schlumberger, because they were very aggressive and made some target plans to actually go and hire women in the area. So it was a very concerted effort to increase the population. Today, for example, I work in the company that I work. We have a lot. It's a small company, so in terms of proportion, it's over 30% of the employees are female. So I see it's increasing, but not as fast as we would like to. And I think it will depend on the employer and in the area. Today, for example, I work a lot in the Midland Basin in the Permian. That's still very, very men dominated.
I have one. Hi, Elaine. This is Jan from University of Calgary student chapter. So I have a question that did you account with some unfair situations on women or some microaggressions on women during your work? Could you please share your story if you're open to that? Thanks.
Yes, I would say that aggression itself, never. I did find some situations where I experienced unconscious bias, and some situations where I didn't feel very comfortable. So, for example, there was one time in my career where I already had a managerial position, quite high in the organization, and we were in this kind of internal conference, where all the other groups from other regions would come to this meeting. And I was one of the hosts of the meeting as the marketing manager at the time. And at the time, I didn't even notice it, just so you can see how bad it is. We were in this meeting, and then I presented. And then when I sat down, there was someone higher up than me in the organization that he wants to have a glass of water, and the room was full of men and myself and the admin. And he automatically looked at me and said, "Hey, Elaine, can you pour the water for me?" And I did, right? Because at the time, I was not even thinking about it, but you can see the unconscious bias straight away. He had all the guys, literally the other men behind, kind of side by side with him. He never occurred to him to say, "Hey, can you pass me the jug so I can get my water?" He looked straight to me, that I was kind of 3 or 4 feet away from him, to ask me to pour the water, because that's supposed to be a woman's role, right? Even though I was a marketing manager at the time. So I've seen things like that. When I was working on the vessels, never had any harassment at all. That's something I can say. Never experienced any issues. However, I had to be careful with my stuff, right? For example, some things that people don't think about it, you have to laundry your clothes when you're on the vessel. And then I learned, as soon as I got there was the other lady that came to me and said, "Hey, Elaine, you gotta have those bags where you put your underwear inside the bag before going to the laundry room, or else your underwear might start disappearing." I wouldn't know that. And she had an additional one that she would kind of give it to me, so I would use. So we had some precautions, but I never felt harmed, never felt uncomfortable, right? But situations with unconscious bias, yes, I've seen it a lot. And even in situations like, I think maternity leave was particularly tough. you leave your job, and then once you come back, the position was not in there. They put it someone else to do exactly the same job that I was doing. I came back thinking that I could do my work, and the excuse was, well, you were away for 3 months. We had to put it someone else in there. And then I was, okay, so what am I going to do now? Well, you're going to wait and see what position I have for you. And I was demoted after that. So those are the kind of situations that I had. It was making my life a little bit more difficult, but never, I was lucky enough to never have been harassed myself.
Hi, Elaine. I am Natalie. I am from Argentina. And I wanted to ask to you, did you ever experience a situation where a man doesn't respect you, that you say that you work with a lot of men? And did you ever have experience when you feel that they were not respecting you? How did you do it? Did you do it to solve the problem or to encourage the situation?
Okay, so as I said, majority of the situations that I encountered was not anything that was not very confronting, right? It was kind of in the back in there. So the way that and most of them were with people that I would have to work with them for a long period of time. So what I've done is, by nature, I'm not a very confronting person. I try to work with the person, right? It's just the way I am. I always have a smile in my face, and sometimes it works in my favor. Sometimes it works against me, right? Because people just think you're too friendly. And so the way I normally do is, and I did, as I mentioned before, there were some cases, for example, when I was in Mexico, that the client would not listen to me at all. It got to a point where I had to raise to my manager. I told him, said, no, I need your support in here. I'm the manager. I know what I'm doing. And this person just doesn't listen to me. That was the worst part the worst situation that I encountered. And the manager was very supportive. He said, no, I'll be there with you. Next meeting, I'm going to be there with you. And I'm going to make sure that they understand that you are in charge in here. It's not anybody else. So that helped. It definitely helped the flow. But I had to, I think what is critical is to recognize when that happens. You gotta be prepared to do something about it. You cannot just let it go, right? And assume that it's gonna go away. It's never gonna go away. The way I found, I never confronted the person itself. At the time, I didn't feel confident enough to do that. I had to rely on my manager to help me out. He would come in the meeting and say, hey, this is Elaine. She is responsible for this project. And then he would let me run the meeting. And when the guy would ask a question to somebody else, he would revert the question back to me, say, hey, Elaine, what do you say in here? So this is how he helped me, empowered me during those meetings. So that's one example that I have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the question also, Natalie, because I think it's like we are all, students and about to be recent graduates, and it's great that you, Elaine, are sharing like tools on how to deal with these situations. So we have a question from Gioma on the chat. I can read it for you. So Gioma, it's from Gioma Ongumelu. She's from the University of North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And she asks, has there been a situation when someone or everyone, especially men, tells you that your idea won't work? And if that was the case, how did you move forward? And I think this connects a little bit with Natalie's question. So if you have anything to add up.
Yeah, well, yeah, that happens on an everyday basis, right? Especially when you're managing. I manage my entire team. Well, for majority of my life has been, I manage men's. the first reaction, not always, but there has been several situations where they would just say, I don't think so. I try to understand their point of view, because sometimes they're right. It has happened in my career that I really came up with something that couldn't work, but I try to understand. I always ask why. Okay, so if you think it's not going to work, why? And I let them explain. Sometimes they have a good reason. Sometimes it's just kind of trying to be, I don't know. But that's how I confronted it. Now, what happens very often lately, that's very often, I would say, in my career as a woman is, and that's related to it, is when you go to meetings and you propose something as a woman, and you just say, everybody kind of look at each other and continue. And then another guy just come in and repeat exactly what you say, what exactly, word by word of what you just said. And then someone else in there said, oh, that's a great idea. And at the beginning, you kind of, what happening here? At the beginning, I'm going to say, I didn't say anything. I would leave very, very frustrated from this meeting. Said, what did I do wrong? I'm pretty sure that I said exactly the same thing. So I would try to find problems in me, right? What did I do wrong? Perhaps I'm not clear. I don't know how to communicate. My English is not that good. And then at one point I said, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me. They just do that because I'm a woman. So now when people do that to me, and I've been doing that for a while, as soon as the chap over there starts saying that, I kind of raise my hand and say, hey, excuse me, but I think this is exactly what I just said. I do that. And I think you have to own it. If you don't do it, you're going to have people doing that on your with you all the time. And I see some heads shaking there, my kind of here. I think that's very, very common.
No, in that case, mine is not a question, it's just a comment, because I have to say, like, Elaine and my tree, like, we look here, people, successful people have been in the industry for so long. And then we would think that by this point, this kind of things would not happen anymore, right? And it's, in one side, it's discouraging to know that this kind of things still happen, even though you have been proving yourself every day for years. But at the same time, it's encouraging, I think, for our generation, I think I can call like this, to really, I'm not saying that you two didn't try to do that, but this needs to be changed. It's unbelievable that it's still now, not from the beginning, but after all this time, you still have to go through this. I just want to make this comment because this made me really angry.
That women made substantial gains over the last 2 decades. So in that generation that you're talking about, Odette, but because of COVID, women had to take a step back. It doesn't matter what country, doesn't matter what role. We have to start over. It's almost like your generation is going to have to start over and do this. But now we have technology and we have groups like this where we can come together and we can, share our frustrations. But also, I say, if you have a solution and it's good, then we should share that too, right? So that's the benefit of being a part of a group like this, where the technology is growing. And then the second theme that they're talking about in the United Nations is women have to be at the table for any level of decision making.
That's a very good point, Maitri. And I think just to kind of close that up, one with COVID, and I do see, right, I'm a mom, I have 2 kids around you, not seeing them today, but sometimes I have meetings where I have kids behind me, and all my colleagues know their names already by heart. Now, and that's something that people, we don't say it quite often, But one thing that to me, it was important in my career to get where I am today. When you think about, and there's all these discussions about work-life balance, dual career, right? My husband he's a geophysicist himself too. But one thing that was very important all the way through my career was having a partner that supported me. And it doesn't matter who your partner are, but they need to support you. And there is that doesn't exist this thing about, oh, this is a woman's job, this is a man's job, right? We do things together. And that helped throughout my career. And just so you have an examples, when it's beautiful when you say, oh yeah, I worked in 5 countries, there's a lot of sacrifices you do in your life to just move around like that. And my husband, he has taken the back seat. Many times I had to move, he would quit his job and follow me. So that's important, right? Because I'm not saying that everybody needs to do something like that. It's whatever works for you so you don't get stressed out. In our case, it works for us. And he was very supportive along the way. I had times where I had a small kid, a baby, and I had to travel. So he would stay at home. We would find some additional support, but he would help me. And especially because I'm an expat, I cannot rely on my extended family. There is no such a thing as extended family, right? We've been always very close and by ourselves. So that's one thing. The other thing I was going to say was it's important to be to get our seat on that table. And I think what's even more important is once you are in that table, once you're there, you gotta make that opportunity. It might be your only opportunity. So you gotta make sure that if you have something to say it, right? It's not just being on the table, but it's to have a voice on that table. And there was one advice that someone once told me, and it was true. I would always sometimes I would go to those large meeting rooms, and all the guys would come in and sit on the table. And I don't know why. We just sit behind and put our chairs there close to the walls. And people were looking, was one manager, was another man. And he said, like, why are you sitting there? You're part of the leadership team here. You got to be here. I said, no, I'm comfortable here. No, you don't understand. It's not being comfortable. It's not that you don't care. It's the message you send, right? If you're there, be there, own it. And I think if you do that, you earn the respect. One thing that I learned is that you have, as Odette mentioned, it's true. You have every single time that I moved from one country to another one, I had to start it over again, right? It's different people, so you have to start from zero. And the same thing with positions. I don't know how many positions I have held, right? I moved from the technical to managerial to functional roles. Every time I had to move was starting over again. But you know what? I enjoy. I don't want to discourage anybody in here. I love what I do. And I like sharing my experiences because I think I can help others. And if you guys have other questions, I know we're running out of time in here, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm one of the crazy people that actually answer LinkedIn comments. If you put a comment, if you send me a message, I do get back to you guys. Thank you everyone for having me. It was a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you so much for your time, Elaine. Thank you everyone for amazing questions. And yeah, it was a pleasure and an honor to have you today with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.